Well, hello. My name is Jeremy Edge, and I'm with escapingthe.com, a counseling practice helping those with problematic and addictive screen use. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to be talking so much about video games and technology, screen use, healthy and unhealthy, even how screen use can be a career for some. So, we're going to be exploring all of the ins and outs, this world of screens. The World Wide Web is very interesting. It can be something that can be very fun. It can be very exciting. It can have a lot of great things from it, but we can also have a lot of problems with it. There can be so many addictions around social media and video games and pornography and gambling. We're going to be talking about a lot of those today, talking about issues and around problems with screen use and around video games, talking about the healthy side of video games and even how it can be a career. We'll be exploring how social media can be a healthy part of it, but there are some traps that we can get stuck into. Then also exploring how pornography can be a big part of problems. Now, the ADHD world this is a good area to explore about how screens impact those with ADHD. We'll be talking about different pieces of that in our lesson, in our discussion today. So jump in, we're going to enjoy it and hopefully have a lot of discussion after the fact too. So buckle up, we'll have some really good times ahead. So let's jump into helping those stuck in the web. Now, when we talk about what screen use looks like, there's a few things what we're going to be talking and the objectives that we're going to explore. The first thing is understanding how screens and ADHD are connected. This will be a theme that we explore in our entire time together. ADHD is impacted by screen use in a couple different ways, and so we'll explore what that looks like specifically with video games, media use, and social media as well. We'll be also exploring gaming, all the stuff within video games, the modern gaming world, and how it's very different than years past, looking at, Pac-Man, things like that. We'll be seeing how games can be a problem, how it can be an issue for a lot of people, how it can be a very healthy activity, and even how it can be a career for some. We're going to be also exploring those clients who struggle with social media issues and pornography issues. In general, social media can be a great positive thing, but it can also be a problem for a lot, and we'll be exploring some of those as well. Finally, we'll be exploring tools and treatments along the way to help us get to a healthy place, the healthiest possible place with all types of screen use. So the first thing I want us to explore is that screen use and ADHD piece of it. So there's a lot of research that we'll be talking about today. And this first research talks about how media use and ADHD are connected, okay? And so they looked at over 40 years of research results, testing watching TV and playing video games. And they found a couple of different interesting pieces here. One, they found a small statistical relationship between media use, which is watching TV and playing video games, and ADHD. And so it's not a big relationship, but they did find that there's some connection. Those who watch TV have more ADHD symptoms. Those who play video games are more likely to have ADHD symptoms. They found that boys are more impacted than girls. And then they found that violent video games can increase aggression and it's associated with attention problems. Now, this piece I want us to explore for a minute because violence in video games is a big issue and a big concern for a lot of parents. I hear a lot of, in my private practice, I'm an LPC, and I see a lot of clients struggling with ADHD and struggling how to manage their screen use. A lot of parents come to me and say, well, they are engaged in this very violent video game. I don't like how they're shooting all the people all the time, and there's blood and there's all this negative stuff. There's this bad stuff. Is that going to cause my student, my kid, to be violent as well? Research shows that violence in video games can increase aggression, but not violence. And so aggression is the frustration and the anger that's there, right? I really am frustrated with somebody. Violence is saying, okay, I'm going to take this aggression to the next level and punch you in the face, right? Aggression is I want to punch you in the face. Violence is actually punching you in the face. But they've shown that violence in video games can very much increase aggression in people, but not necessarily the acts of violence. And I want us to kind of really hopefully hear that and some encouragement. It's natural to see there's a lot of violence in the world, of gun-related violence, unfortunately, and it's natural to see video games as the primary problem. However, right now, research does not support that. There is an association, though, with attention problems as well with violent video games. There are a lot of fast-paced content, and so it makes sense that if someone's engaging in a lot of fast-paced content, there's going to be more attention problems associated with it. They found inconsistent findings with fast-paced content in ADHD symptoms. Okay, so this is interesting. There's inconsistent findings from this research of fast-paced content linking that to ADHD symptoms. They found no connection between age and ADHD symptoms as well. Ultimately, more research is needed on age impacting social media and ADHD symptoms. They found that some show some preschoolers being impacted more than school age, but it's been inconclusive. Okay, so that's one research study that's really interesting to kind of explore more of what media use and how it's connected to ADHD. Now, there's another research article that talks about gaming specifically and ADHD. And so this is the result of those findings. They found there's a correlation between severity of ADHD and excessive gaming. So they found that there's a connection between if there's someone who has extreme ADHD, they're very impulsive, they are very disorganized. Those severe symptoms are linked to excessive gaming. So that's something that is really interesting, that if we notice our students, our child, experiencing very extreme levels of ADHD, it can be good to be aware of what they're gravitating towards with activities and behaviors. And if video games are a part of that, if they are engaging in more and more excessive gaming, it could be something just to respond to and be aware of and respond appropriately to. They found extreme ADHD showed higher addiction scores. So again, the higher ADHD symptoms there were, the more extreme ADHD symptoms there were, the more addicted they likely were to be to video games. Also, this research study is for 4 to 12-year-olds with ADHD and 280 participants in this research study. They also found there's a bidirectional relationship, meaning people with ADHD, kids with ADHD, find video games very appealing. And those who those who play video games, those ADHD symptoms are exacerbated. Okay, and so that's a really interesting finding. Is if you have a student or a child who plays video games, and they have ADHD, those are going to be exacerbated on both sides. Okay, so it's something just to be aware of and something to notice of. Video games can be a healthy outlet, can be a fun thing that we'll explore more in a minute. But it can also exacerbate and inflate ADHD symptoms. So it's something to be aware of. They also found males are more at risk, higher risk for this, for problematic and disordered gaming. Okay, doesn't mean that they are going to be disordered or problematic in their gaming. It just means that they're more at risk. So many times ADHD is seen as a weakness. Okay. But we should be viewing also ADHD as a strength. This is an example in this slide about how video games potentially can be, ADHD can be an issue or a problem to watch out for. But another thing that we're missing completely are the positives of ADHD. This is an example of some research by Dr. Kelly, who talks about some pieces that a lot of us are missing. We pathologize a lot of ADHD, Asperger's, anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, and these being a negative, a holistically negative thing. But this is some interesting piece that if we look here, there's a lot of interesting pieces within this. And so if we look at, let's see here, I'm going to use my pen here. Okay. If we move this over here, sorry guys. This is recorded, but still. All right, so if we look at a couple of things, ADHD, if we look at the testing of there are different pieces here. Intelligence, they're pretty intelligent, they're pretty average, but their creativity and their passion are really high. Okay, those things are very, very high. And so it's something that's pretty interesting that I want us to look at. Again, so this right here, 15 and 17, these are really high numbers. They're very creative and very passionate, okay? Walt Disney had ADHD, and he was very creative and he had a lot of passion. And so those were very positive things that helped him in his career and his life. Those who have Asperger's, they're very intelligent, highly intelligent, and they're very passionate. Now, they don't have very good attention, and their social skills are not very good. However, in the areas of strength that they have of passion and intelligence, they are fantastic in those. And there's a lot of strength within that. And so I think one of the things that's really natural to do is to see these issues or see ADHD as a problem. To notice ADHD is something that is just a big issue, and it's something that we need to watch out for and cope with and respond with, right? And not necessarily, right? If we're able to say, okay, my kid has ADHD, how can we move towards their strengths? What type of creative outlets can we provide for them? And what type of things can we help them get passionate about that can help them in, just in life in general, okay? This research by Dr. Kelly has a couple of different things to look at as well. And so they're talking about strengths-based gaming as far as kind of where they get this research from. In the game called Dark Souls, there are different classes you can play. And you can play as a knight, a wanderer, a thief, a bandit, things like that, as a hunter. And so you have different points that you can put into different skill sets. And so vitality, endurance, strength, some of these things that make up the character. And so if you notice, each character here has a different strengths and weakness, right? The bandit, for example, has high endurance and high strength. Not very much attunement, okay? Not very much intelligence. The bandit's not very intelligent, but they are very good at strength and endurance, okay? However, if we look at the sorcerer, they're very high on attunement and intelligence. And so there's different strengths, there's different areas of if you want to play a character that has a lot of strength and endurance, you need to probably pick a bandit versus a sorcerer. Now, if we then look at whenever we look at the player base and players that are the best players in the Dark Souls game, this is what we find. There's different types of players, different types of characters. And so this Crestfallen Warrior, for example, these are kind of the points that you find in some of the best players out there. Their vitality is extremely high at 45, and their endurance is high. Their dexterity is high and strengths are high. Attunement is very low. Faith and intelligence are very low as well. So the best type of warrior moves towards their strengths. They move towards their vitality, endurance, strength, and dexterity. Now, if we look again at something that is a little bit different, maybe something like a cleric, okay? Cleric has a lot of vitality, okay? They also have a lot of dexterity. They don't have much strength, okay? But they're working in what they're good at, okay? They move towards what they're good at. In general, these are things that if you focus on their strengths, they're going to do better in the game. And again, if we go back to that initial slide, friends, we can look at how ADHD can be a strength. It can be a positive, really good thing for our kids that have ADHD, our clients. Those who have Asperger's, we can see it being a really big issue. They have to climb over this hurdle of social skills. And sure, they need to work on some social skills, but that doesn't mean that we completely say that they're not going to be a functional person. They're extremely intelligent, and they're very passionate about things. And that's a very good thing that we should encourage and move towards. So again, if we start to, if we stop pathologizing some of these things and move towards strength, that's going to be a very good way, I think, to move towards some of our clients who have ADHD. Okay, so now with this, we're going to explore more of what the different types of gamers there are. There's 3 types of gamers out there. All gamers can fall into one of these 3 categories: the escaper, the achiever, and then the hardcore gamer. So the escaper is made up of a few different things. They love to play to escape into a world. They love to be immersed in the world that they're playing in, maybe World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, Zelda, Skyrim. There's so many out there that have an immersive world. And they love the storyline. They love the characters. They love the builds. They can build these characters. Dark Souls is another example, right? Where they're able to really be immersed into this world. They love to escape into this world. They're pretty impulsive, and they are characterized as having low self-esteem. The achiever is the next gamer type, and they're motivated to achieve and to win and to compete. They're motivated by competition, by progress, by ranking up, being the best, or having the best stuff. They're pretty impulsive, but they have high self-esteem. Now, the difference here is those who play a sport of any kind knows that pride comes in whenever they do well in the sport. If you're playing basketball and you're really good at shooting threes, you feel really good about yourself. Your pride is increased by being good at this type of game and being able to perform well in this skill set. Well, video games are the same thing when it comes to skills that are involved. A lot of games like League of Legends, Fortnite, Call of Duty, Valorant, CSGO, or now CS2, these games are skill-based, and the more you play, the better you get at it, the more that pride will increase, that self-esteem will increase as well. The last gamer type is the hardcore gamer. Now, they're motivated to escape into a world. They also are motivated by achievement. So they are pretty impulsive. They identify as a gamer. They love being a gamer, and they're proud of it. And now, of all the categories, of all these three categories, they're the most at risk for problematic gaming or disordered gaming. It does not mean that they will be disordered or problematic if they are a hardcore gamer. It just means that they're more at risk. Okay, someone who has type 2 diabetes is more at risk for gaining weight and for issues around health, but that does not mean that they are going to be really problematic in their health, in their physical health. Okay, so we look at all the gamers in the entire world. It's about 2.5 billion gamers in the entire world. About 80%, 80 to 90%, play in a healthy, recreational way with no issues, no problems. They play irregularly with no measurable consequences involved. There's about 10% who play and they're at risk. There's some issues, there's some identifiable problems. Maybe they're staying up late every now and then. Maybe they're missing an assignment. Maybe they're not going to work on time every now and then because of gameplay. Now, about 5% of all gamers have more issues around their lives. So it could be academic struggles, social struggles, family relationships issues, work issues. There's clear problems now, multiple problems from video games. And a gaming disorder is about 1 to 5%, 3% globally struggle with gaming disorder. Now, they qualify as a gaming disorder, and there's a few things that make up this diagnosis. The ICD-11 is from the World Health Organization. In 2022, they found gaming disorder as a full diagnosis in this diagnostic manual. It's made up of impaired control. They would rather game than do other activities, and they continued to game in spite of seeing problems. Now, this has to happen for a year's time. There has to be significant impairment in almost every area in this person's life. Their personal health, their family, their mental health, their physical health, their relationships, their work, their school. Every area has to be negatively impacted from video games, as well as having these three areas checked off for a year's time. If you have a kid who during spring break or during the summer, they go ham on video games and they're just playing all the time, and it seems like nothing you do, nothing else matters. All they want to do is play games. They're playing 5-6 hours a day, and it's a huge issue. But when they go back to school, when the school year starts up again, they engage. They go back in their classes, they do the schoolwork, they play a sport, or they do chess club, and they're engaged. Sure, they play some games as well, but they're able to fully re-engage back into school. Now, that is a healthy way to transition. Sure, it can be a problem during the summer or spring break. That could be an issue that needs to be addressed, but that does not mean that that example of a student identifies as gaming disorder, as having a gaming disorder. If that were to happen for the entire year, they go back to school and they still play 6 hours of gameplay a day, and they're failing their classes, and they are fighting with their parents all the time, and they don't have any other extracurricular activities, and they're really unhealthy, and they cannot control this, then yes, that is a problem, and that's a disorder. It depends on what's happening in their life, and we need to see it from an outside lens. There's a couple of reasons why gaming can be very hard to stop. It can be very addicting for a lot of reasons, and one thing is dopamine. Dopamine is our feel-good pleasure hormone. Whenever we're pursuing or engaging in a pleasurable activity, dopamine is released. This is a chart of an example of when dopamine is released for different activities and substances. Our baseline dopamine is released. So that blue line there is our baseline of dopamine being released. We get a 50% increase in boost of dopamine when we eat food. We get a 75% increase when we play video games. And sex is 100% more of an increase in dopamine levels. So we can see clearly here in just those first three categories, video games are more desirable than food, that feels better than food, less than sex. If we look at cocaine, that's a 350% increase. Again, our baseline is 100, but there's a 350% increase in crack cocaine, all right? And it's incredibly higher with a methamphetamine drug, okay? Dopamine levels are substantially increased with drugs. So it is unfair and inaccurate to compare a video game to crack. I know it's often a clickbait thing that we can see online, but objectively from the research, it's not accurate. And so it can be addicting, and it is something that we need to watch out for. Dopamine is definitely released. And especially if we look at teenagers feel and experience things more so than an adult. If you compare a 50-year-old who experiences a video game and they experience dopamine release, but you then also get a teenager, a 15-year-old who plays the same video game, their dopamine levels are going to feel more. It's going to feel more and be more exciting and more intoxicating. And so it's something just to be aware of, that video games within our teenagers, they can feel more of that. It can be more pleasurable and desirable. Something just to be aware of how to moderate that so they don't become addicted. Dopamine is a big piece that is released. We also get a lot of positive reinforcements from video games. This is an example of a clip from a game called CSGO or Counter-Strike Go. And in the game, you're working together as a team, trying to complete objectives to win. Now, this is a clip of when this person makes this shot, okay, and they hit the person and they eliminate them from the round, a couple of things happens. This little line right here, okay, that opens up. I'm going to be able to give us a little bit more of a thing here, okay. So this happens right here. They get a little notification up here. This happened. You get an increase in gold, okay. And you can't hear it, but there's an auditory ding that's very different in this type of shot versus just eliminating them in another way. It's rewarding and it's encouraged. It's immediate. You get immediate feedback when you do this in the game, when you do it well, okay? It's something that is really something that a lot of people want. A lot of people desire to play a game well. And this is something that, again, is a lot of immediate positive reinforcement. When a student goes to class and they study for a test and they do well on the test, that's good positive reinforcement. It's very delayed, though. And so it can hopefully encourage them to study again for a test in the future. But for that immediate satisfaction, it's not there. Video games are very good at immediate positive reinforcement. Another thing that's very interesting within video games is the type of variable rewards that you will experience in a video game as well. This is a game, an example of you explore a dungeon, you're building up your character and levels, and you find different items that throughout your gameplay, okay? And as you can see here, they opened up a chest or a box, and the colors represent how rare the item is. White is very common. Blue is a little bit harder to find, a little bit rare. And then this gold item right here is very rare. Okay, so if we were to be able to kind of look at this right here, this is a very rare item. This item right here, it's in blue, not very rare. Again, and this yellow is white right here, is very common as well. But this right here, this is a jackpot. This is a gold mine. This is something that in the game, the character is increasing they're increasing themselves and their character output by either damage or with an item that improves their gameplay substantially. And this is the same thing, though, as going to a casino and playing a slot machine or playing a blackjack where you don't know if you're going to win, but sometimes you do. Whenever this person goes and opens up this box, they're not always going to get this item, but sometimes they will. And that sometimes makes you go back to do that again and again and again. There's a rare chance for them to get this item, but they did. And so now they're going to go back and try to get it again and again. It's a very highly addictive activity. We can talk about how B.F. Skinner discovered, with the mice and rewards back in the 1950s. Mice would be rewarded for small, large, or no treat upon pushing a button. And this mechanic is in the gameplay. Sometimes you get stuff, sometimes you don't get anything. But that mechanic of the sometimes gets you go back for more and more. There's a couple of negatives that happens within addictive gameplay. First thing is there can be a lot of anxiety and depression. Mental health can take a really big hit here when someone is engaging in problematic and disordered gaming. They can feel really isolated. They can feel really like they don't have much mastery in the other activities, and they can be really depressed. Broken relationships can be a big part of this as well. Relationships with parents, relationship with peers, and relationship with their spouse or if they're an adult. I worked with a client one time where there's a spouse came to me saying that their spouse played a lot of video games, was causing a big rift in their marriage. They're recently married, and they tried to figure out how to be able to work through some of this, but it was a really big issue. It was something that they thought they had handled prior to marriage, but when they started living in the same home together, it was becoming a really big issue and a really big rift in the relationship. There's a lot of impulse control issues that can happen. As we saw earlier in the research, sometimes impulse control can take a back seat with ADHD symptoms as an example, when someone is engaging in a video game or any type of screen use. And so impulse control is something to be aware of. There's a lot of cognitive distortions, meaning it can sound like a couple different things, but one is like, oh, it's not that late. I can stay up a little bit longer to play this game. I don't have to wake up that early, or I don't have to work on this homework right now. I can do it later. It's not that big a deal. I can play games instead. I don't really have to go out to this practice, or I don't really have to hang out with my friends this weekend. I just want to, hang out online and play with my friends online, or just play this game rather than do that. So there's a lot of slippery slope thinking and cognitive distortions that can happen for those who are engaged in problematic or disordered screen use. Finally, there's a lot of financial strain that can happen around addictive screen use, around gaming in particular. A lot of games are free to play. League of Legends, for example, I think, Fortnite, I believe, is free, but you have to pay to buy some stuff in the game. But some stuff that the game companies, make money from are called loot boxes. Okay. So there's some issues around loot boxes. And if anyone's ever seen this, there's a couple of different ways that you'll see this in some of the video games. There's a crate. Okay. And so what you can see here is there's a crate that, you can open up. Okay, this is within the game, but you need to have a key to open the crate. Okay, now you can play the game a lot, and you can obtain this crate from just playing it a lot, and it'll drop automatically if you play it. Sometimes you can do the same thing with the key. A lot of times, though, you have to buy a key in order to open up this box. Now, if you see here, these items right here are all the different items you could obtain from the I'm not sure what's going on there, but all the different items you can obtain in the game. Now, sorry, my cursor's messing up here. But these are all the items you can obtain by opening up potentially this loot box. Now, you're not going to get all of them, but you'll get one of them. Okay, these are all skins. They're basically a cosmetic item for this game. This game, you can see the weapon you're walking around and things like that, and so it can have like this purple design on it. It could have like this cool little design on it right here. You could also get a very rare item that's over here. Okay. Again, I'm not sure what's going on with my cursor, but it's a rare item. It's a knife. It's about a 0.4% chance for someone to open up and to get this item into the game. So you can when you open it, it looks kind of like this. Let's see. There we go. So you open up the crate, and this is what it looks like. All the items, kind of potentially what you can get, and cross your fingers and hope to get a good one. And oh, cool, great. Now you can play with this skin in the game. Now, again, this does not change how good you are at the game, your level, your accuracy with the shot. It just makes the skin of the gun look cool, look different, okay? It's a pretty rare item, so it's a pretty cool find, okay? The issue, though, is it's the same thing as gambling. it's the same thing as a slot machine. And even how the visual is, right? On a slot machine at the casino, you can see it going vertical, and the horizontal is the piece of the skin. You get to see potentially what is there, and then it lands on what you're actually going to obtain. And so it's a gambling component. There are some regulations that's working down the pipe. There's some regulations in different countries as well, Japan and the Netherlands, for example. They're currently working on some legislation here in the U.S. about loot boxes because it is gambling. You can sell these items online for real money, and there's real value associated with these items. So again, the problem here isn't gambling itself. Gambling itself is fine. It can be fun when done appropriately. But anyone of any age can open up a loot box. Anyone can gamble. But the legal age to gamble is not a minor, right? It's those who are an adult. And so those who are enjoying their gameplay, it's good to explore with our teenagers, with our clients, what they enjoy about the game. Is it the game itself? Is it the strategy? Is it the competition? Is it the teamwork? Or is it a gambling component? Is it acquiring items to try to just acquire more stuff and acquire more wealth, more prestige? Is it again, what type of gambling or what type of gameplay are they engaged in? And if they enjoy the gambling aspect of it, it's an opportunity for a conversation. It's an opportunity to put in healthy, financial limits and boundaries to help enjoy the activity, but not for it to be a problem. Okay. So this is something that's interesting, that is something else to explore with your clients and with your kiddos. Healthy gaming can also be a very good and positive thing. I want to encourage, we're going to shift a little bit here and talk about the healthy side of gameplay. And these things are really positive, healthy things to explore. There are a lot of good relationships that can come from gaming. I know a professional, a colleague, Dr. Daniel Kaufman, who is an avid gamer, a professor, a counselor. He's a psychologist who is really a proponent, an advocate for healthy gaming. He's a big advocate for healthy gaming. And he talks about how he's made some really good friends, lifelong friends, from playing online, from meeting them online, and then meeting them in person. So it can be a healthy, positive thing. Now, as a teenager and as a child, we need to have healthy boundaries and limits for sure. Online relationships, though, positive ones can happen. It's a really great place in games to create and to build new things, build new worlds, be very creative, a lot of problem solving, a lot of strategy. And again, for those of our teens who do have ADHD, this is where they can thrive. They can be very creative and very passionate and very involved in what they're involved in, engaged in online, right? They can build a really cool castle in Minecraft or work together with a team to be able to find a different way to solve this problem. There can be a lot of good within that space. Again, there's a lot of competition. Healthy competition is good. It can help push kids and teens and adults to strive for their best. And so there's a lot of competition within games. Every game, you work towards a goal of some kind, okay? Even if it's a competitive game or it's a slow pace, kind of work at your own pace, but there's something guiding you in each game. And it's good to work towards a goal. It's good to fail along the way. It's good to help build up resilience and to know that, okay, I'm not perfect. I'm not going to get everything right every time, and that's okay, and that's good. It builds up resilience and it builds up strength. And so to have that be within gameplay can be very healthy and very good. Finally, it's good to play. For teens, for kids, for adults, play is needed. And especially for kids, play is where they learn the most. And so it can be a fantastic place to relax, to unwind, and to play. And so it's something, again, that I would encourage us to be able to have that be a good place for our kids and teens specifically. There's a lot of times, too, players can explore different characters and different identities, okay? If they're questioning their own identity, video games can be a safe place to explore who they feel like they truly are, or even build a character that's representing who they want to be, okay? If they feel like there's like an 11-year-old boy who really does not feel very powerful, feels shy, maybe bullied in school, doesn't feel like they have much friends, or they're not very they're kind of small for their age, they may feel really insignificant. But in the game, maybe they're able to create a character that is opposite of that. It's a strong, powerful, confident warrior, for example. And they're able to have big muscles and all this armor and all this stuff, right? To be able to focus on, the strengths of this character. And so when they're playing their game, they're not themselves this 11-year-old who doesn't feel very powerful, that feels weak. They're playing a very powerful character in a game. And so it can be a good place to help explore who they want to be, or kind of it's a good place to explore what character traits that they want to embody. Other types of characters too can be good. If feeling like there's a little bit of sneakiness, or feeling like I want to be able to be powerful or significant. I'm not sure about maybe even my identity, my sexual identity. Online games can be a great place to be able to explore some of those pieces. Online games too can have a lot of really neat customization to it. Okay. They're able to, go from and create any type of character. Okay. Any type of attributes. We can see, in this, you can be a barbarian, like a warrior. You could be a sorcerer. Looks like this person's chosen to be a sorcerer. You can be a wizard. You can be a ranger, right? There's so many different things that, type of classes you can be within the game. And then again, like we saw earlier, different classes have different strengths. And so if you see yourself as being very wise, a very, kind of a lot of knowledge, very smart, being able to make a difference from a distance, this sorcerer is a really good place to start. Right? They have different they have different skill sets and different items here, all these different spells. These things are a part of what makes up this character, and so then they can customize their facial features, customize who they want to be, and so there's a lot of individual character development that can come from a video game. And again, that can all be very healthy. It can be very good and insightful for our kids. If we notice, hey, tell me about what type of character you're playing. Show me who you like to play the most and why. Tell me about this. Oh, this is cool that you got this really neat character, right? So it can be great to explore with our kids. If you're working with a client, it can be really good to explore this as well in your therapy session. What type of game do you play? And then what type of character do you have in there? What do you like about them? What character traits do you notice that you want to see in yourself? And so it can be a really great place to explore with curiosity to help them understand more of themselves through the characters that they're playing. All right, so this is one thing that can be very good and healthy. Okay, games can also be a big problem, but games can also be a career path for some people. Streaming is one way to make video games a career. And streaming is where you can see the person usually play. They have a video camera on them, and they're playing a game live in front of an audience. You can see here in this picture, you've got the different aspects of the streamer. You've got get the cursor here. Hold on one sec, guys. You've got the person right here who's playing. Right, you've got Tim, the Tap Man here. You've got their gameplay right here. And then you've got all of their fans. I'm not sure why my cursor's not working on this side, but you've got all their fans and people they can talk live right here on this side. Now, this is something that a lot of players maybe strive to do. They strive to be able to, be in this world of being able to play this game and just make money, right? He's made his net worth is over $10 million. This is Tim. I believe he's 32 years old. He's able to make a living from streaming. Over August 2019 to October 2021, the revenue was over $3.2 million. Okay, so there's a lot of money by sitting on a computer for 8 hours or more a day, playing this game and being able to make a lot of money. Now, what the streamers usually have is they're pretty good content. They're probably pretty good at the game. They're funny. They're attractive. They have some insight into the game they're playing that people want to watch. Okay, there's a lot of different types of streamers out there. Tyler Blevins or Ninja is another very popular streamer. He is, you see here, sponsored by Adidas. He is currently 32 years old. He's made $17 million in 2019. Okay. There's so much money that can be there in a streaming way. Now, he's been asked to also make to play a game, and they'll pay him $50,000 an hour to play their game because he's got so many followers. He can play a new game, and it's basically advertising. It is advertising for the game itself to say, look, if Ninja likes it, well, then I like it. I should buy it, and I should play it as well. Now, but Ninja is interesting because he saw gaming as coming second. Okay, so it's not just something where it's like, I want to only stream and do nothing else. He has a really interesting insight on this, and we'll explore more of that in this video clip.
Tyler, you started competing in video games on Halo in 2009, so nearly 10 years ago, at which point I'm sure it was tough to convince your parents that there was really a business model for this and that you could really make money. What was your argument? Because I'm sure that every 16, 17-year-old out there who loves playing video games wants to hear that.
That is an incredible question. I'm like really happy that you asked that. I maintained my job that I was working at Noodles and Company, and I stayed in college while I was doing all these things. I continued to do well in school and focus on like the future of my life, as well as working on streaming and competing in Halo. It was one of those things where, like, if I was doing well in school, putting in the time and effort there, in soccer as well, that I would be rewarded to play as many games as I want. And honestly, I encourage everyone to do that. All the kids out there, like, you can't just drop everything and focus on playing video games for a living. It's also becoming a very competitive career choice right now, and you want to make sure that you're securing your future and putting in the extra time to try to make this happen as well.
So he talks more in the interview about other pieces, like what he's doing with his money and how he's been able to make it big and other pieces like that. But it's a very interesting dynamic, I think, because this is a guy who clearly is, making a killing from gaming, and he's doing it though in a pretty responsible way. He did it in a responsible way, saying, "Look, I'm not going to drop everything. I continue to work and go to school while I was doing this, and I didn't fully commit to gaming as a career until I made it as a streamer, right? So I made it. So I was able to make enough money to live, and so." It's something interesting I would encourage us to talk to our kids about, our clients about. Like, look, if you're good and if you have the charisma, you have the skill, and you have the time to invest in that as a side hustle until you make it a full-time gig, until you're able to make it a full-time gig, then that could be a possibility. But it is being very competitive, especially now in 2023. So it's good to be able to kind of see that with a grain of salt. Taylor Swift is fantastic, and she's a superstar, right? Tom Brady and all these LeBron James, they're fantastic, and they're stars. But not everyone can do that. Not everyone can be that, right? And so some can, but not all. So this is an example of an esports event. This is Ninja at a event that was in 2019, I believe, prior to the pandemic. In New York, where they played a world championship for Fortnite. Now, esports is this next level or another way for someone to make a living from streaming. It can be something where they are able to be in a competitive environment. There is usually a team involved. It's an organized experience for gaming, right? So you have the NFL for football, you got the NBA, you got for basketball, and esports is that professional world for video games. In the U.S., or currently there's like about 57 total games out there that have esports teams and organizations. Of those in the U.S., there's around 19,000 players, and they've made a little over $169 million in revenue. So these teams out there can make a living. It can be very difficult, very hard, especially if you're like kind of in the minor leagues. It can be very difficult, but it can be possible for people to make a living as a esports player. Some games are more popular than others. Dota 2 is an example of a 5 versus 5 competitive game. It's been around for a while. And then they have a world championship every year. And in 2021, they had a prize pool for first place. And this was the prize pool. Over $40 million for a world championship in Dota 2. This is one game, one time a year, and it was huge. It was a big deal, and there's a lot of money involved. If you have got a team of 5, and then you have a coach, and you can split that money, be pretty good with that type of money and those winnings. And so again, not all of the 57 games are that popular and have that prize pool, but some do. And some are able to say, look, there's a new game coming out. There's a Valorant game that came out. There's now a Counter-Strike 2, CS2 that came out. Overwatch 2 came out. And then they see this is my chance to go big. I worked with a client who played Overwatch a lot, the first one. And he was really good. They were really good. And they played, and they were able to be on a team. It wasn't the very top tier pro team, but they were on a team. And they were good, and they were not able to go to that next level, to the best of the best, but they were really good. They were not able to make a living from it, but they were good. Now, Overwatch 2 came out a couple of years ago, not very long ago. And they're like, now this is my shot. This is my opportunity to go big. This is my opportunity to get back into it. I have to grind. I have to spend a lot of time and effort and dedicate my life to this to be able to then go pro now in this game. This is my opportunity. If I don't do it now, I'll be too old. My reflexes will go down. My reactions time and speed will go down. This is my shot. I have to do this. Now, in the meantime, they were not able to hold a job, to have any healthy relationships, or to pursue school. They were kind of in that college age range, right? Kind of like a lower 20s, early 20s, and they were not very healthy. Okay, a lot of malnutrition and a lot of unhealthy habits because there's no exercise and 8+ hours of gameplay to be able to help make this a reality. So again, there can be a lot of potential for this to be real, but also a lot of unhealthy habits that can come from this as well. So to pursue healthy gaming, there's a couple of things I would encourage, okay? One thing is I would encourage you to take a 90-day break. And so what that does is if we're able to take a 90-day break, maybe like a 3-month break specifically from games, if that's a problem for you, then it gives you time to help move towards other healthy things, okay? It gives you a chance to reset your brain. Dopamine levels are going off, and they're a big part of addiction, okay? So when you're engaging in addictive gaming, you're enjoying gameplay, but you also are not enjoying other things that maybe you could enjoy if you weren't addicted to games. Let's take gambling, for example. If you were addicted to gambling, you're not going to probably enjoy other activities as much as this gambling activity because there's just something, your levels are so high with that activity, nothing else compares. Taking a break helps you enjoy and experience other activities at a different level, at a higher level. And it takes time for that to happen, for that reset to happen. It's good to game after responsibilities. As a good general rule, we can start to practice gaming after responsibilities. That's a really good rule just to have. It's also good to find mastery in the physical world. I worked with a teenager, a high schooler, where the more we worked, the more there's a lot of issues with gaming, too much gaming and problematic gaming in school and at home, not really engaging in other activities, but they played a lot of games. The more we dug, the more we found out, well, they don't feel very competent in school. They do math or English or something. They don't feel very good about their schoolwork. They don't feel like they're very masterful in school. They feel like they're dumb. But when they play this game, oh man, they're good, and they were able to perform at a high level. And so they moved away from the areas of weakness and moved towards their areas of strength, which was competition, reaction speed, and timing, and teamwork. And so this was something that, if they did not find much mastery in their academics, did not find much mastery in other things besides this game. Finding mastery in a game is fine. Finding mastery in doing something online can be fantastic. But if it's causing problems in disordered activities for you, disordered behaviors, then maybe try to shift it up and to find mastery in something else. Again, if you're trying to move towards healthier lifestyle, if games are a problem or disorder, it's really good for us to focus on how we can find mastery IRL, or in the physical world, in the real world. It's really good to prioritize our physical health. We'll talk more about this in a little bit, but really making sure our sleep, our hygiene, our exercise levels, our nutrition are all prioritize, if we do all those things well, then we won't be gaming up until 2 o'clock in the morning because we're going to sleep at a regular hour and getting 8+ hours of sleep. So it's helping you stay in a healthy, positive place. It's good to engage in other activities. I got more to talk about this in a minute, but it's really good to engage in not just physical world activities, but other activities that are similar to the motivations of why you're gaming in the first place. It's really good to set up what's called protective factors. What that looks like is something, exploring and working through something like this. This is something I've adapted with my colleague, Jody Bechtold and Dr. Tony Bean, where we have explored the wheel of life. This is an example of the wheel of life. We've got different activities, peer relationships, nutrition, exercise, sleep and hygiene, parent or romantic relationships, education and career, and then mental and spiritual health. These areas, whenever we're doing those areas well, and we've got a lot of positives in these areas, our life is going to be protected from unhealthy activities. And so what this looks like is how to fill this out and use this with your clients. I use it with my clients a lot. It's a great exercise to help process what's healthy and balanced for them. In this middle section, we think about, all right, what does disorder look like for me in these areas? Okay, how are my activities really unhealthy? My relationships, and we talk about that, and we write them down in something like this. Okay, this is kind of hard to see, but you can utilize this as kind of an example of how to fill this out. So you write down, all right, so in my disorder category here, what does that look like? Maybe they're gaming 8 hours a day. Maybe they're not playing any other activity, not doing any other activities, but they're just gaming 8 hours a day. They don't have much peer relationships, and if they do have peer relationships, it is with those online. They don't have very good nutrition. They're eating maybe one full meal a day and then snacking a lot, and it's unhealthy snacking. They don't exercise. They are physically inactive, and they don't exercise. Their sleep and hygiene is messed up. They shower maybe every other day, and they sleep inconsistently. We're going to bed around anywhere between 2 to 4 a.m., and then they'll sleep until like noon or so, and then they'll try to repeat it, and sometimes it'll be different. Most of the time it's that. Their relationship with their parents as a teenager is not very good. Now, if you're doing this with a young adult, if they were dating or an adult, we can explore what their romantic relationships would look like. So maybe they're fighting a lot with their spouse, their partner, things like that. So if we're again a teenager, their education could be something we explore here. Maybe they're failing their classes. They're not doing these classes very well. Maybe they're if they're in a career of some kind, they're messing this area up as well. They're not going to work on time. Their performance is really low. Their mental and spiritual health is this last area to explore. Maybe they're depressed. They're really anxious. They feel isolated and alone, and they feel like there's no purpose. Spiritual health does not need to mean faith or religion. It can be their purpose, their higher calling to something else. It can be faith, it can be religion, but a lot of times it can be just purpose. Like, what's your purpose and meaning in life? If you feel like you've got no purpose, no meaning in life, then that is an area that could be disordered. Then we go and explore what is healthy and balanced in these areas. And we see either in the past or in a perfect world, what is healthy in these areas, okay? And again, we fill out each category. So for diversified activities, maybe for this client, for this kiddo, teenager, it can be they're playing soccer, they're on the soccer team, and they play chess, and they play games. They play games at the max of like an hour a day. They're also engaged in soccer. They're engaged in their chess club. They enjoy these other activities. For their relationships, they enjoy peer relationships in person and online, and they prioritize both. For parent relationships, they're engaged in their relationships with their parents. They enjoy hanging out with them. They're teenagers, not best friends. I mean, come on. But they do enjoy at least hanging out with them a little bit. It's not horrible. Nutrition, they're having at least 3 healthy meals a day-ish. There's not really unhealthy snacking. So you kind of get the picture of this. The healthy places you talk about and really point out the different pieces specifically that helps them be healthy and balanced for them in this area. Then the at-risk and problematic section, we talk about what is a little bit unhealthy about what they're doing. It's not completely disordered, but it's not completely healthy either. Maybe they're skipping out on soccer practices and they're not going to their chess meetings at all. Maybe their relationships are kind of floundering. They're not really spending as much time. Maybe they're fighting with their parents more. They're sleeping less. They're not eating as much. So these areas can help be a pretty clear distinction of, okay, where am I, what's going on where I'm healthy, what's going on where I'm pretty unhealthy, and really unhealthy and really disordered. And again, this isn't something to judge. This isn't to say, like, oh, well, you're not doing this, so that's not good. It's something where we need to really use it as an opportunity, as a tool to help our clients and our teenagers and our young adults explore how to move towards this healthy place, because that's going to protect them. When they're experiencing diversified activities, they're protected from disordered gaming. When they got really good, healthy peer relationships in person and online, it's protecting them from unhealthy and disordered gaming, and so on. So all these areas combined protects them from disordered lifestyle. Okay, so when we talk about engaging in other activities, can we talk about a minute, like I said, just to stop gaming for 90 days, what do we do, right? I had a lot of clients say, okay, a lot of parents say, this is great, but if you tell my kid that, they're going to say, well, there's literally nothing to do in the world. I've checked twice and there's nothing. I just checked, Mom, there's nothing to do, right? So the way to help respond to that is to, for one, understand the type of game they're playing. If they're playing Minecraft, for example, Minecraft can be a lot of different things, but one thing it could be is they could enjoy the creativity, the problem solving, the complexity that comes with this game, and building and creating new things. Those things are fantastic. Those attributes about the game are really good and healthy. It's something we should promote. But if we need to take away the game because the game's causing problems, let's find another outlet that helps them do those same things. So maybe a robotics club, maybe a club where they're able to create and to build something new with others. They're able to problem solve and to create new, really complex things. These are called, again, transferable gaming motivations, something that we can kind of transform and move towards something else based on their gaming motivations. You can just do this with any game. Valorant is a fast-paced, competitive game. The point of this could be competition, skill set, getting better and better at this game, and being able to compete and maybe even win some money. A similar activity could be rock climbing. The first time you rock climb, you might not be very good. Same thing as Valorant. But the more you do it, the better you'll get, the stronger you'll get, the more competitive you'll get. And you can even compete and to win prize money in both of these areas. You can win money in Valorant and in rock climbing competitions. So that kind of is the gaming section we're going to be exploring. Now we're going to explore more of social media and pornography kind of moving forward. And so social media in general, the problems with social media can be summarized in this hook model, okay? We're usually triggered by something. We get a ding, a notification. Hey, so-and-so liked your post. Cool, thank you. There's a trigger that then creates action. We go onto the app. We go onto Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and we look at the app. Then we get some type of reward, okay? Whenever we go on Instagram, we may not always get the same number of likes or comments, but sometimes we get a lot, okay? Not all the time, but sometimes, and that feels really good. It's a lot of reward, but it's random. It's very rewarding and desirable, as we talked about before. Then we invest back into the app. So meaning we go back into the app and we engage with it. We text, we comment, we post again, and then we close out and go about our day. And then we're triggered again and we repeat the process, okay? So this is in general the process of how you get hooked onto social media. So a way to respond to this and to get away from this is a few different things. One is to be aware that this is happening. Be aware that this is something that social media platforms utilize, and just to be cognizant that this is happening, and then to manage triggers. Turn off all notifications that are not from a real person. If it's from an app, if it's from a platform, then we don't need to know that. We can text who we want to, and real people can respond to us and text us back. And we can go on these platforms when we want to, when we choose to, rather than them choosing for us. It's good to create friction. What that means is if you have the desire or a trigger is there, right? I want to check my status. I want to check my social media feeds. We can then create friction by giving a space from that thought to that action. I'm going to count to 10 before I make that choice. So you wait. And after that, do I really want to do this right now? Okay, cool. And then you check your phone and you do whatever. Or you can put it physically away from you. So every time that you want to check your phone, you have to physically get up and go check your phone. So it's creating a little bit of space from the thought to the action. That can help and managing social media. It's also good to inverse variable rewards. Pocket Points gives you rewards and points for different restaurants by being away from your device. And Forest is a really cool app where you build a forest the more that you are away from your device. So if you need to study for a test or work on something or spend time with friends in person, you can turn on this app. You don't touch your phone, don't go on social media, and a forest grows. It gamifies being away from your device. Now, the minute you grab that phone, though, the forest dies. It's not as powerful. It's not as strong. But then if you leave it there for a while, then you'll get rewarded for that as well. So again, you can get rewarded for being away from your device. Finally, it's good to use what's called Freedom. Freedom is an app that I really recommend you check out. It gives you parameters and boundaries so that you only utilize it for what you need to utilize to be productive during certain time frames. Check it out. It's really cool. It's a free version. There's a pretty inexpensive, I think, paid version, and there's sales like all the time, every month, like 50% off on it or 100% off. So just check it out. It's a really, really cool, healthy app. Now, when we look at some research around social media, this was a meta-analysis back in 2020. It goes over 34 reviews and analyzed 594 publications discussing social media and its connection to mental health. It's really interesting and controversial. Let's get into it. There's a small negative mental health effects from social media use. Okay, so that's in general something we kind of all knew, right? More social media that we use, the more negative experience we get. Okay, so that's confirmed. Check. But they found that intense social media use can actually increase social capital and social support. Meaning, if we actually use Facebook and Instagram for what it was intended for, to connect with others, to be able to talk with other people, to connect, it can actually help increase our social capital and feeling connected to others. They found that appearance-focused content can lead to body image disturbance. Okay, so again, a lot of images out there focusing on the perfect body, the perfect structure, the perfect whatever physique. That is magnified online. And if we focus primarily on appearance, it can lead to body image disturbance. That is clear. They found no association between social media and life satisfaction and loneliness. And then I'm just kidding. We're gonna focus on that for a minute. This is a big statement, guys. This is a big statement that found there's no association between social media use and life satisfaction or loneliness. This can go counter to a lot of some of the information we've heard and seen around social media. The social dilemma talks about all the issues around social media and things like that. The social dilemma came out, I believe, I think prior to this publication being out, so they didn't have this information. But it's very interesting that they found, again, a direct association between social media and life satisfaction. So if we try to link it, it's not there. But they did find there's some preliminary evidence showing that if you're depressed and you go online on social media, you're more likely to feel more depressed when you leave social media. If you feel anxious and you go on social media, you're more likely to feel more anxious when you leave social media. They found that there's no moderating effects of age and gender, but culture and personality did, meaning culture and personality impacted your mental health when using social media, but your age and your gender did not, okay? So our cultural background and our personality has a big impact in how we use social media, interact with it in our mental health. So those are some big findings. Part of social media is this fear of missing out, or FOMO. There's some research that specifically talks about what FOMO is like. And so they found that there's a decline in productivity and worsened mental health and distractibility when we are experiencing FOMO. There's also associations with sleep disturbances, social anxieties, clinical depression, and decline in academic performance when we are experiencing this fear of missing out. They found there's no research linking FOMO with ADHD. So if someone's really missing out or kind of experiencing FOMO, they're not hanging out with their friends, or they feel like they're being left out, they have not found a connection with that experience with ADHD. They found the best prevention is to limit screen time and to utilize cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT counseling. Okay, so these things are interesting, especially around social media. A lot of clients I work with and a lot of teenagers experience FOMO, where they'll see a post or something online and they were not included. Um, and they feel like, gosh, I feel really bad about this. And so research is now showing that there is a decline in productivity and there's a worsening in mental health, in this as well. So it's something that we should be aware of and have conversations with our kiddos and our clients. So around social media use, there's a few different things and tips I would encourage us in engaging in healthy social media use. One is to avoid all comparisons. Focus on what a healthy body is for you and focus on that. It's good to talk about image-based platforms and to know that, okay, so this is an image that's online, but that doesn't mean that's healthy. And it's like what the ideal should be, right? Again, focus on those healthy pieces in our clients and kids. It's good to have a device-free bedtime. A lot of times if we go to bed looking at social media, it can lead to FOMO. It can lead to feeling isolated and alone. So that's a really negative experience. It's good to monitor mental health as a precursor. Notice, okay, am I feeling a little bit anxious or depressed or isolated right now? And if so, it may not be good to go online. It's good to be an active social media user. They found that, again, if you're active, if you're intensely using the platform, if you're talking to others, if you're engaging and not passively scrolling, you're going to appreciate and you're going to gain a lot more. They found that if you just passively scroll, you don't really experience the positives from social media. It's good to also be aware of our time on social media. Again, this goes for anything online, any activity, but it's good just to be aware of how much time we're spending online. Now, let's transition to a fun topic of pornography. In general, porn is not really good, I think, for kids and teens at all. There's a lot of issues with it. I think for adults, it can be potentially a way to help improve a sex life for a couple if both parties are objectively and like truly wanting this to happen. They're truly consensual in this. If one person's like, oh yeah, this will be great, but the other one's like, no, I don't want to be a part of this, then that's not healthy and that's not good. It'll cause a rift and a challenge in the relationship. There's a lot of issues of insecure attachments can happen, especially in adults. A lot of insecure attachments can come from pornography use. It can be an issue around impulse control. The more that we desire something and a strong desire, we want it right then. People can look at porn immediately, right? And so if we get into the habit of doing that, our impulse control is reduced. They can be associated with low self-esteem, feeling disconnected with others and low self-esteem. There has been some information out there saying porn-induced erectile dysfunction can happen. The more porn that's used, the more that potentially there can be erectile dysfunction. There can be also sexual dissatisfaction and loss of expectations with real people based on how much porn they're utilizing. And also broken relationships can happen. This kind of talks about insecure attachments, but really marriages, relationships can be broken from porn use. And also addiction. Porn and sex can be very addicting. A lot of people can have a hard time managing, if someone is addicted to sex, right? Sex addiction can be a very big problem. Pornography can also be a big part of that as well. So to treat porn use, there's a few different things that I would encourage. For one, try to remove all access, all triggers, of pornography. Now, when you do that, it's good to engage in other healthy, exciting activities. It's good to try to understand the motivations behind this. So are we engaging in porn as trying to get excited, try to feel connected to others, or to try to escape from some stress? Why are we going online in the first place? And if we can engage and try to move towards other maybe healthy activities that's exciting and that's exhilarating, that can be good. If we're trying to get an escape, how can we get an escape in another healthier way? If we want a connection with others, how can we do that in a healthy, productive way? It's also good to learn about our triggers. Look at specifically environments and activities. So for example, a teenager, their environment to be triggered could be maybe they come home from school, no one's home, the house is quiet, they're tired, and they're horny. So maybe the environment is when they come home, right? And the activities maybe could be, after they watched a certain show, or after they engaged, in the working out or something. And so the activity of watching the show or working out triggers, I want to look at porn. And then we need to respond to these triggers with different activities and boundaries, right? Again, this is where we set up protective factors. So it can look like Rather than going home, we know the house is going to be empty. You know you're going to want to look at porn. Maybe go to a friend's house and study at a friend's house. Maybe go to a Starbucks or go to a public area to study or to do something else rather than being home alone. It's good to set up boundaries. I'm not going to allow myself to go online after a certain time. I'm going to give my phone to my parents or to a friend, give them the passcode, talk to others and have an accountability partner. There are a lot of things you can do to respond to this as well. It's also good, finally, to get support from friends, parents, families, and professionals if need be as well. It's a really healthy piece to it. Okay, so we kind of ran through a couple of things with social media and porn. We're going to zoom out. Okay, we're going to zoom out and be able to explore more of how to be able to engage in screen use in a healthy, productive way. And there's a few things that we can look at here with our time remaining. One, we can look at screen use as food. We can eat cheeseburgers and fast food all the time. We could be unhealthy about it. It can be really cause a lot of problems, but we could. But if we engage in healthy living, healthy eating, it'll add a lot of positives to us, right? It matters what we eat and how much we eat, right? Halloween is great, but one time a year. Screen use is kind of similar. We can engage in entertainment-based and entertainment-only screen use. There's no productivity. There's no social interaction. And that could be probably an unhealthy way to primarily engage with our screen use. But we could also use screens to engage with others, to increase our productivity, and to relax. That could be a healthy way to do it. It matters how we spend and what we spend our time on when we're online. Okay, balancing screen use, there's a few different things. After responsibilities, when we're learning something new, connecting with friends, these are great ways to use our screens. Okay, when not to use screens, it's good to not use screens for entertainment purposes during homework, during mealtime, time with friends. Also, if we're in person, there's one of my trainings, the word phub or phubbing, P-H-U-B, was, I learned about it. And basically phubbing is when you're on your phone, you're on your device, when you're with somebody else. That's phubbing somebody else. So let's not phub. It's not nice. Another things that we need to explore and prioritize, again, like I said before, is sleep, exercise, and nutrition. Friends, these are fantastic ways to really help focus on balance with our screen use. This is another way to do it. Focus on your time. In a 24-hour period, this is an example of what your day could look like or a teenager's day could look like around screen use and around their other activities. This can look different for other people, but you can take what's called like a screen time inventory and just explore what you're doing in your day and how you're devoting it to different activities and where there is time for screens. Now, in general, not even with video games, not even with social media, but in general, these are some ideas to move practically from problematic to healthy. Stop the specific problematic screen use activity. Not all of it, but stop specifically what's causing problems for you for around 90 days. Then we need to redirect these strengths. Talk about before, the redirecting gaming motivations. This can also apply to other things as well. We need to also change our environments as possible. I work with a client who primarily struggle with balancing that environment. So we had a separate place for school, separate place for play, separate device for play, separate device for schoolwork. It's good to set up and create protective factors like we discussed. These relationships also around us have to be addressed and improved. And finally, we need to address underlying issues that are there. The treatments that I would encourage for psychotherapy, for counseling, is cognitive behavioral therapy, motivational interviewing, and acceptance commitment therapy. All have research behind them showing that those are effective with problematic screen use. There's a 12-step recovery programs are fantastic. Internet Technology Addicts Anonymous are great. Find a chapter local near you, or go to Gamers Anonymous, I believe, Gamers Addicts Anonymous, GAA. Those are also great. Support groups are also good to help those loved ones who are struggling as well. There are some inpatient facilities out there. In Washington, there's Restart, specifically for gaming addiction. There are some medications, opioid receptor antagonists are out there if need be. There are some fantastic resources I want to help provide for you here. I won't be able to have time to go through all of them, friends, but these are fantastic. I'd encourage you to check out. Geek Therapeutics has a lot of resources and trainings for the geek culture. Common Sense Media is fantastic for parents, understanding how to, different games and different movies and different ratings to help keep our kids safe online. ITAA Internet Technology Addicts Anonymous. Fight the New Drug talks about pornography and working through those challenges. Family Media Plan helps provide a contract for parents and families with navigating healthy screen use. I've made a course. This Powered Up course are for teenagers and parents navigating healthy gaming. HealthyGamer.gg is a fantastic resource. And then Restart, like we talked about before. And finally, my website, escapingthe.com, is where you can find me and where you can explore other pieces of my work. So please, friends, reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm in Dallas, Texas. I'd be happy to provide any more resources for you. We've got a lot of resources on my website and my content. If you want to be on my email list, please reach out. These are my references, friends, for all of the slides today. And that is about it. Again, please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. It was a pleasure to provide you this presentation. And I'll answer any questions here we have in a little bit. Take care.